What a terrific turnout. Thanks a lot for coming. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jonathan Head, who's Vice President on the board of the club this year and the BBC Southeast Asia correspondent. We had a pretty good night in our pre-election analysis, but this promises to be an even fizzier evening. Well, you know, those of us who've been covering this election, the last few days have in many ways been a lot more exciting than we expected. Everyone knows the constraints under which the election was held and the advantages that have been given to the incumbent military government side, but for all of that it's been a fiercely contested election, and we have at this stage a very inconclusive result with nobody really able to say how things are going to pan out by the time we reach the final certification of results on the 9th of May, and presumably the formation of some kind of coalition government after that, but even that's uncertain. So it's a terrific night to be having a discussion on what the election itself means and what is likely to happen. I'm just going to warm you all up with just a couple of minutes of video from the past couple of weeks of the election. Tam.
Thailand's general election this Sunday will be the first since the military coup in 2014.
Voting early on election day. Prayut Chan-o-cha is looking to keep his job through the ballot box.
The military-drafted electoral system is stacked against him. But there are 7 million first-time voters.
Party is just the latest bid by a military government to compete in the elections with an eye to win. Many other rulers have done so in the past, but eventually
จนกับคนรวยจะทำยังไงให้เป็นรูปธรรมอะไรคือพื้นฐานสำคัญที่สุดที่ต้องแก้ดังนั้นติดตามรับชมรายการ Election Debate Thailand 2019
As the polls closed and vote counting began, many Thais crowded round the polling stations, eager to ensure the transparency of the tally.
A practice to show transparency. Each ballot is read aloud before it's being recorded. Now this process is being replicated at more than 92,000 polling stations across Thailand.
This is just another episode of electoral irregularities that we experienced over the past months. The context of the election commission is that they have to make sure that the junta party wins the election.
The minimum age of voting is 18, which means the oldest first-time voter will already be 26 years old, which makes me wonder, could young voters be the key to victory?
Honestly, if you cut only this, it would sound so bad. I want power, but power to change and power from ordinary people.
Prominent filmmaker Tanwarin Sukapsit is hoping to bring more public acceptance to those in all minority groups if elected.
I have to be a person who can make understanding, the right understanding of the diversity of people.
By the time the coup leader himself comes on, with the familiar avuncular tone Thais have been hearing for the past 5 years, the rally is on the point of fizzling out.
So we've got 5 panelists tonight. It's a bit more than we normally have, but we were inundated with talent and we really couldn't do without them. I'm actually going to... I will... have we got Chandani from ANFREL? Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay.
I'm the only one that brought up
Lost you for a moment.
David? Yes.
Can I ask Chandani to sit there?
Yeah. Please. No, don't be sorry.
Look, we've tried to get a variety of different speakers on today, and I'm going to ask Panu Wongchaun, who's, I call him a veteran journalist, I suppose he is now, used to work with Channel News Asia, now works with Reuters, but one of many journalists who has had to see this election day in, day out in all its forms, and get him to start the proceedings, just to give a kind of front-eye view of what it was like covering the election and his own impressions as a young Thai voting. And to his right is David Streckfus, no stranger to many of you, who's an independent scholar and has spent a great deal of time up in Isan and knows it very well. And he'll be speaking at the end of the panel about how the election went in Isan and what the changes are there. Next to him is Ajahn Sirapan Nongsuan Sawadi, who's an associate professor of political science at Chulalongkorn University and has been one of the most astute commentators on Thai politics in recent years, and we're very glad to have her. We tried to get her to the club before, but I think she said she was too exhausted to come and talk, so we'll have to try not to exhaust her today. Next to her is Chandani Watawala, who's the executive director of ANFREL. There were only 2 independent agencies able to monitor this election. The Thai authorities gave almost no notice to would-be election monitors, so people like the European Union were simply unable to deploy. So it was a big challenge for ANFREL to assess the quality of the election, and obviously given some of the controversy we've had over the reporting by the Election Commission, it's quite important to hear their view. And then at the very end there we have Ajahn Parinya Tewana Ruamitkun, who's he's actually a legal professor, but at Thammasat University, but he's also a veteran of Thai politics. I think, Ajahn, you were involved in the 1992 events. Yes. And so he's going to do some number crunching for us, looking at what we've learned. That is, of course, everyone said to me today, what numbers? Because we've had quite... we've had rather... The Election Commission has possibly broken a record for the number of different kinds of statistics it's given us. We're all still a little bit mystified. But look, you've all been very patient, so let's get cracking. Pani, first of all, just give us your impressions.
Thank you, John. Well, I'm by no means no veteran, and all these people to my right can probably explain the election better than I can. But I had a chance to cover this election and then travel to many parts of Thailand leading up to the voting day. And I mean, I can generally say that, for people across the country, it was really, despite, people know that this election was not going to be totally free and fair. There was always some sort of skepticism about the whole process, but majority of the people that I've encountered are very enthusiastic and very hopeful by the whole process. So I think that's quite important to highlight. I mean, we've seen that election mean different things to people in the Deep South. We've seen that people, in the North and Northeast were hoping to use the ballot to express their disagreement or express their views about 5 years of military rule. We have seen also fringe groups, rising through this election. Buddhist nationalists, we've covered that extensively, have used this election as a platform. Even though they didn't get any votes, they have really created a new sense of fear down in the Deep South about sort of the relationship between sort of Buddhists and Muslims in that restive region. But going back to this whole election, it's really was set up to be sort of this hopeful kind of exercise that people haven't done it for a long time. But then come election day, it was a little bit more anticlimactic, and then the results and the development that ensues have really kind of really confound the public. I think that people are still waiting to hear how the numbers that have been released so far will pan out, and how what that mean for coalition making. It looks very much like we're heading to some sort of a deadlock. And this is something that we have heard over the last few months leading up to the election, that one of the major scenario is some sort of unity government or some sort of a concession, sort of a grand coalition that will involve various groups of people that not necessarily formally agrees with each other. Of course, I have to, before I finish, I really have to mention that there are 2 major players, of course, outside the electoral politics that cast a huge shadow on the election itself. First is the monarchy, and we've seen that through various statements, as well as sort of that lightning day, right, on February 8th, in terms of the nomination of the princess by Thai Raksa Chart Party, and of course the military has loomed large behind sort of this electoral exercise, which sort of set the scene, if you like, in a post-election kind of showdown, at why these political parties are sort of making their grand stand, posturing, and not these 2 essentially more powerful institutions have the ability to shape the post-election landscape for Thailand in the weeks and months to come.
Thanks very much, Panu. And Ajahn Parinya, perhaps I know you're going to give us a PowerPoint, but also give us some wisdom on what you make of the
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I want to begin from the beginning. What I prepare, I begin from today afternoon. You will surprise why in Thailand the Election Commission don't need to declare 100% of the counted votes. They declared only 94%, but with a lot of pressure to them, a lot of suspicious numbers and so on, and they declare 100% of the counted vote this afternoon. The question is something wrong in the number, by a number, and that would change the number of the seats in the lower house? Okay. Today, 100% of the counted votes is already declared. By the first glance, if you see, okay, it's in Thai, this PPRP, Palang Pracharat, they get from 100% 6.2%, and Pheu Thai, they get 6.98. But the first glance maybe is not the kind of cheating, If you want to cheat, Palang Pracharat should has more than Pheu Thai should look like that, but it's not, doesn't look like that. And the first 10 party has got more than 6%. And I think it could be, by the first glance, maybe no. I don't have evidence by look at this number that there is something wrong by now. And the second question is the number of the lower house change or not. It's almost the same. I look at this in the internet before I came here. During I drive to here, and by my quick calculation, it's not changed much. Almost not changed, by the number, because you can see this PPRP. Yes. Pheu Thai, because Pheu Thai has 138 seats, but by this calculation, Pheu Thai has got only 111. But there's no problem to the number, no change to the number of Pheu Thai in the lower house, because of our electoral system. Pheu Thai should got by this proportional representation system only 111 seats, but Pheu Thai has won in constituencies 138, and therefore Pheu Thai don't get seats from the party list anymore. So
can I just clarify, Ajahn, I think for those who perhaps don't understand, the way of calculating the seats is to divide the total number of seats by the votes. You work out a specific number of votes per seat, and that number there is what the parties would get just on the proportional seats, not their constituency seats.
But this PR system is not the same system like practice in Germany. In Germany, people have two votes. One vote for candidates in the constituency. Second vote is for the party list. But in Thailand, by this, according to the constitution, there is only one vote. Only one vote. But the vote will be sum, and make percentage of the votes from the party to the together of the votes from all parties, and this percentage will make percentage in the lower house. So it's a system, and it's not so good. That is really polite to say that it's not good. Okay, it's bad. Okay, it's bad system, because if you are a voter, you want to vote this candidate, but you don't like his party. You have it's difficult for you to make decision. Or in the opposite way, you like this party, but you don't like its candidate. Or you like this party so much, but this party don't send any candidate in your constituency. It's bad system, and okay. But as I told you, the number may change not so much, and okay. And I think what you would like to hear this evening is the chance of General Prayut to be Prime Minister. whether he can be Prime Minister again. Okay. You know, we have, according to the Constitution, we have 500 MPs and 250 senators. Both houses will vote for PM. You know, it is not ordinary system. You know, normally only MPs vote for PM. You know, but this time the senators will nominated from NCPO have also, you know, right to vote with MP. You know that, and it is absolute majority. You know, you need more than the half of the number of both houses. The half of both houses is 375, more than the half is 376, and therefore people said, okay, it's great chance for Prayut because you need from PPRP and maybe other party just only 126, that you can be Prime Minister furthermore. But maybe it's not so easy like that, because from now until now, you know, so far the allies to stop Prayut has got seats more than the half, you know, and according to my calculation, the party that declare that they want support Prayut has got seats more than the half of the lower house. And what happened? It will be have something like this, and could be at deadlock. You know, in the first hand, these allies to stop Prayut, NCPO, get more than the half of the lower house, but less than 376 with no support from senators. You can have more than the half of the lower house, but you can be Prime Minister, or you can stop Prayut to be Prime Minister. And Prayut, in the opposite way, Prayut can be elected, voted from the both houses, because 250 are nominated from NCPO. He could be elected for Prime Minister, but he won't get the half of the lower house. So
Ajahn Pranya, could you confirm that the lower house majority could institute a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister?
Yes, because vote of no confidence is happen only in the lower house, not with both houses, and therefore you cannot survive. You know, with this coalition from PPRP, opposition, Pheu Thai and Future Forward. Can you imagine? Prayut without section 44, you know. And opposition is politician from Pheu Thai and Thanathorn, and you know, I don't think that he can survive, you know. But it actually is maybe not so bad that Prayut will be Prime Minister furthermore. It will be, you know, some enjoy for some people, you know, to see this scene in the politics.
A lot of banana skins might be thrown around.
but if he even can be Prime Minister, he could not stay in the power for so long. And if you want to pass a bill, you must to send it firstly to the lower house. Then, when it gets majority from the lower house, then this bill will send to the upper house. If you don't have the half of the lower house, you can't pass any bill. You know, he cannot survive for so long, just maybe a few months. Okay, but what is the way out for Thailand? Because in one hand, you know, lower house is belong to the majority of the belong to the allies of Pheu Thai and Future Forward and so on. But by the two houses, majority is belong to PPRP and Prayut. What is the way out? I would say that Okay, what will happen if the parliament cannot vote for a new prime minister? The answer is in section 265. You know, the National Council for Peace and Order holding office prior to the promulgation of this constitution shall continue to perform duties until the Council of Ministers newly appointed following the first general election according to the constitution takes office. That means if we can have a new prime minister, Thailand will have Prayut as NCPO and section 44 forever, you know.
I think you just cast a very big shadow over this room.
Okay. If he is immortal, okay. And okay, please let's imagine if you are the members of the lower house, what should you do? We have 500. The required number is just 376. If we can unite, we can win against the senators. So, it's the scene should happen. You know, and why Anutin become an important figure and somebody forecast that he could be the next prime minister. But what is that can already could that already happen? Phumchai Thai is number 5 with the number of lower house 51, 52. You know, if I will translate for you, he said this before the election day. I would like to speak clearly. The next prime minister will be from the lower house. I don't accept these 250 senators that are not elected from the people. So it's something, you know, and it's a good, very good position. And okay, I would tell you more about the constitution, the regulation. According to the Article 159, Section 159 of the Constitution, and the candidate can be voted in Parliament only candidate from the parties that get seats in lower house more than 5%. And there are only 5 parties that have more than 25 MPs. And this is PPRP, Pheu Thai, Future Forward Democrat, and Phumchai Thai. You know, if you want to have more than the half, and now it's something very in the half, you know, something less, not much, you know, not less, but not much, not so much many, more than the half by the allies of Pheu Thai and Future Forward to stop Prayut. But therefore, this ally needs Anutin and Phumchai Thai. And can be even, you know, if the next prime minister will be chosen from these 7 people by the first round. there is second round, but I talk about the first round. And if we cannot, if the parliament, both houses cannot choose from these people, because cannot get 376 votes from both houses, what happened? And both houses can open the next round, you know, to vote for the people who are not in the list. Anybody can be prime minister by the second round. But the vote that required to open this round is 2/3. It is 500 votes. By the first time, I was surprised by why it's so difficult to open this round. 500. If I have 500, why not I become prime minister by the first round? So I analyze like this. what happened if you cannot vote by the first round? You cannot vote anybody to be prime minister, and if you want to vote the second round for other people who are not in the list, you need 500 votes, and you can get this number. What happened? You can vote these people, and you can open for the second round. What happened? NCPO and Prayut will remain in the power. Furthermore, and therefore I think with this condition, this both condition, I think the lower house will do something, and Anutin therefore play a big role, But now he said, I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to speak out my political opinion until election commission declare the result of election officially. And what happened? What will when does the election commission declare the election result officially? According to the constitution, the election commission has time, to declare this within 60 days after election day. According to the previous condition, it was only 30 days. This time is double, Can you imagine? We have election for 2 months and still don't have election result. This happened only in Thailand, But election commission don't want to take risks, According to the other section of the constitution, you must finish the election within 150 days, after the organic law for election is in power, and this 150 day will is the last day of 150 days is the May 9th. Therefore, they declare that they will declare the May 9th, and I'm quite sure that they won't declare from the coronation, which will happen in the May 4th to 6th, and therefore we can calculate something May 8 plus 1 day, yes, or minus 1 day.
Ajahn, can I ask you to wrap up now so I can get the other speakers on?
Okay, good. But it is very interesting. Actually, the candidate to be senator is already there, already prepared, this 250. But according to the constitution, they can nominate this list to the king only after the election result is declared. And that is the reason that why election commission don't want to declare the election the counted vote, because something that the house that we vote for prime minister is not the lower house but also the senators, but we still don't have senator, but we still have vote, and we can calculate that how many seats each party can get, but now 100% is already declared, but I would say that to get 376 only Phum Chai Thai is not enough. If the lower house would like to unite themselves, only Phum Chai Thai is not enough. The allies also need Democrat. And I would like to explain to you why in the past Bangkok belonged to Democrat. Most of the constituencies belong to Democrat. Why this time Democrat didn't win any constituency? You know why? And PPRP are so proud that they get the majority, from Bangkokian. And Democrat. What happened with Democrat? because I would explain you in conclusion, our electoral system in constituency is simple majority system, not absolute majority system. That means PPRP has got in the constituency something 30%. In many constituencies get less than 30%. If by the last Sunday, if you would like General Prayut to be Prime Minister furthermore, you have only one choice. It is PPRP. If you don't want Prayut, you have three choices at least. First hand is Pheu Thai. Second hand, the second choice is Democrat, and the third choice is Future Forward, and so on. It is splitation, split of the people who vote against PPRP. So, if they would know Future Forward, what happened? If you imagine that, if there is no Future Forward, this vote will get to Democrat, and PPRP will not win so many constituencies like this. So, and okay. Now, the last question is only Democrat can make this happen. If the lower house want to stop Prayut Chan-o-cha, they need Democrat. Okay. Actually, I would say that both sides need Democrat. Both sides need, in the first hand, Phum Chai Thai, and then also need Democrat. And which side would Democrat without Abhisit would select? We don't know. We don't know. But can you imagine if Democrat should choose PPRP and Prayut, not the allies, what will happen? We will see something very weird in the parliament, by the vote of no confidence. Politicians of Pheu Thai speak against Prayut, Thanathorn speak against Prayut, but Democrats speak, to protect Prayut. And what will happen by the next election by Democrat? With Democrat, I would say that Democrat will never come back, will get seat less than 20 and become smaller and smaller. Yes, no future for Democrat. If you lost the game, you lost the football match, this time you must think of the next match, not just the coalition and all the parliament. But I don't know which side they will choose. But we could say that we still don't know Prayut will be the Prime Minister or not. Still don't know, because even though the allies can get more than the half of the lower house, but in the next 40 days, a lot of things can happen by the election commission. They have red card, yellow card, that? And not only red card and yellow card now, new invention, they have orange card and black card. Wow, it's really complicated system, and the number still can be changed.
Ajahn, thanks very much. I'm just going to ask if you could just swap seats with Shantani so she can put her own PowerPoint up. So Shantani's just going to run through what ANFREL's findings were on the election and the various allegations that have flown around about irregularities.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to be here, seeing many people here, and also that Ajahn stopped with some very, I think, burning some points that who will be the next Prime Minister and also and how it can be happen. But I'm starting in a different way. ANFREL is an organization working for advancing democracy for 21 years. Our head office is in Bangkok and since 1997. And so far, since then, we have observed 60 election observations. This is the 61 election observation in Thailand. Very interesting election observation. And we never have been that experienced so far. We have been to Afghanistan, we have been to Timor-Leste, newly democratic country Myanmar, but this is the very interesting. And so far, we have observed in Thailand 2001, 2005, 2007, and 2011. After 7 years, again we are observing the elections. We try to engage with these elections with the big number, 60 election observers, and for long-term observers, short-term observers, electoral analysts. We try to engage with the Election Commission since last year, November. We shared our interest to the Election Commission, but there's no response. Then again, after declaring the election day, we send our interest or the meeting appointment. There's no response in December. Third, again we send. So many effort we done it. Finally, we got accreditation just 9 days before the elections. That means the March 14th. However, we try to manage to deploy our observers, 34 observers throughout the country. Our earlier plan was to the electoral analysts for 60 days, but we have to make, but before before the accreditation, we deployed or we try to analyze research through the electoral analysts for 45 days. Means that we started February, the last week of February, analyzing the electoral situation. Then first term of observers deploy for 2 weeks. Because if we wait for the short-term observers schedule, we cannot observe the advanced voting. That also the significant period to observe the significant event. Then first batch, we tried as much as to manage to bring our observers, 12 observers, including the advanced voting we observed. Second team, only for the 10 days, just before the election, pre-election period, election day, of course the post-elections, counting and tabulation, what the most controversial things right now. Then so far, we managed to release advanced voting operations report, the report, as well as the interim report covering the election day. Election day, we managed to cover 492 polling stations in 30 provinces from the 77 provinces. Actually, our own plan was to cover 77 provinces, but however, it didn't happen. This is the whole team. The last Tuesday, we managed to release our interim report from the press conference. It was held in the Bangkok in Sukhumvit. What is our perspective? According to the international election observers, we are bound by the declaration of the international observers principles, as well as the internationally laws and regulations. And also our own Asian declaration for like a Bangkok, or our initiative, ANFREL initiative, Bangkok Declaration for Free and Fair Election. And daily indicators, they are the indicators we are measuring the elections free or fair. The pre-election environment, the campaign environment was stiff in favor of political parties supporting the ruling junta. We have seen how was the pre-election period. It was not equally allow every party to play. Only the pro-government or their friendly parties allowed to do the campaign, or the campaign was much open for those parties. Lack of transparency of the EMB. Of course, it was like we tried to get as much as information. How many candidates was open, of course. How many women candidates, how many the domestic observer groups, what are the regulation, what are the information. It was not. Even their website also not available. That was a good example, was that the transparency means that the advanced voting day, people were very much confused. Some of the people confused to find the voting place. Where is my voting place? Where can I go? And lack of voter education on the electoral process. Now we are talking about the invalid voters. We don't know what is the reason for invalid voters. That means that they don't have enough information, awareness how to vote, or they don't have any trust about the democratic system, because almost 7 years they don't have elections. The country rule without the elections, without democratic rulers. Then the people may think, what the point of going to vote, even it is compulsory. Some use of government resources and vote buying reported. Legal framework, I don't want to touch legal framework. My previous speaker, he was talk about lot about the legal framework. The whole confusion, all the issues came up because of the legal framework is many loophole. It was not the proper or the concrete to ensure the democracy or the free and fair elections. Poor coordination, limited information for political parties, civil society, domestic and international observers. Of course, this is so many there's no proper coordination from the election management and also among the parties also. Advanced voting day. The high voter turnout. We have to appreciate, even with the 7 years there's no elections, and also the lack of education, lack of transparency, even though the voters came to vote. But unfortunately, the management of the operation not favor to the voters. In our experience, our observers reported to that some of the voters have to return because they took only the 2 hours. Even their Sunday is a holiday. Some are maybe working in the shops or working in the commercial trade. They got only the 2 hours or 1 hour time. Then they came, long queue. They don't have time. They go back. And also the preparedness of the EMB could have been better. That is our suggestion. Maybe in our recommendation, our comprehensive report will come out in May. We will come out our recommendation. What are the things need to be considered for ensuring the free and fair elections? And also that the election, I can see you later, maybe one picture. This is the place, actually I am the one who observed. This is Rajadevi, the polling station. There's no the candidate information in the advanced voting day. Until 10 a.m., there's no information. It's not only the one place, it was happened in the many places. The election day, of course, peaceful, no violence, generally smooth and transparent voting process. But we always telling election is a process, and also the election day is only for one day, but it's a process. All stakeholders need to be get together and also the coordinate solidarity among the political parties. There's lack of the political party's agent. Even we have seen the political party agents very low, but even they don't know how to observe. They don't, we can say very few political party agents have a checklist or the paper to check what's going on. They are just sitting. Then when we ask that, did you get any training? Yes. How many days? 1. And some says, I don't know, I just came because my blah blah blah, because my friend asked me to come here, I'm sitting here, like that. And also the domestic observer groups need to be increased, and also that the very low number of domestic observer groups we have seen. Tabulation and consolidation process were deeply flawed. It was mentioned in our report. The counting or the system was not unified. Place to place difference. We interviewed the polling officers. They said, yes, we got training 1 day. And also that, I don't know, it's 1 day enough after 7 days. And also it is common to, we don't know. That is like, those are the things I think we need to be addressed to the election management process. What are the significant issues? I'm not talking about that the results, because my previous the speaker already mentioned about that what happened to the results, and the preliminary results, what happened, and also the today results, what is the difference, and also a lot of the differences, and also that the election management body failed to build the trust among all the stakeholders. That is the major thing. And they promised to give the results on the election day by 9 p.m. I don't know, they are overconfident, because it's like more than many number of voters. Then how they can release? And also then later they said, we can give it in the next day by 1 p.m. or the afternoon. It failed. And then again, they said 29. But anyway, that they came out in early today. And also the disfranchisement of some overseas voters after the fact. You know that the New Zealand, that every vote is counted and valued. That is a universal franchise. Finally, then they did not count that the overseas voters more than 1,500. The reason is that they said the law, if the cast vote didn't arrive, the time of the counting, they are not taking. And those are the things. Actually, law is many loopholes. And what is the point of that organizing, arranging the overseas voting if they are not properly arranged to bring back the vote, those cast votes, and also the consider to count? Relatively high percentage of invalid voters.
Yes.
And still unclear rules regarding what constitutes valid ballot and the unvalid ballots. And also I can show you one picture. This is the one of the posters that show in the polling stations for voters to identify what is the valid, what invalid. Can you identify anybody of them and what is valid and what is invalid? For me, no. It's so unclear how the general people identified this one. Undemocratic provisions, including the Senate. Okay, the Prime Minister is, I don't want to touch that area. My previous one, or the speaker was clearly mentioned that Prime Minister is the electing from the, not from the Parliament. Then they need to have it's not a people choice. Finally, it's not a people choice. And somebody have to, like a Senate or the upper house, who did not come through the universal franchise, is deciding who will be the Prime Minister. Exclusion of some groups, Buddhist party detainees from voting. the important thing is, if I'm not happy with somebody, I want to prevent from voting, I can create a charges for person to detain this period, maybe person or whole group. Then you cannot vote because you are detained. Even I'm not happy with the political party group of people, I can create some charges. That is the way that they create the law. Okay, I try to show the one picture. This is Prachinpuri province. I don't know I'm correctly pronounced the province. Actually the original the polling station was located in one of the Buddhist temple. Then later it's moved to the government related like a Pracharat store. It's like a place for the underprivileged people to get some provisions. And this is a huge place. This is one of the things that they move to the place, and also that the place is the government underprivileged people are getting support. Yeah. That is one issue. Another issue is this is a big place, but the voting place established corner of the place with the small area. You have to decide why it is. And this is some of the pictures that a long queue of the advanced voting. And I was in one place, I told you, Rajadevi polling station. I asked from the polling staff, then they said at least 70 voters need to count within 1 minute. Otherwise, they cannot finish this whole registered voters in this polling center. That means that it's like a machine. You have to send the product okay, one by one. If it is missed, then you are losing thank you so much, and also that I'm happy later.
Thank you, Shandani. Just one point. Shandani, can I just... Shandani, can I just ask, did ANFREL judge the election in the end to be free and fair, or did you not make that judgment?
I think you know the answer.
Ajahn Siripan, perhaps we could get your thoughts, the broader thoughts on what we learned from this election.
All right. I wouldn't call it fair and fair or not, but I think my sum up of this election is election without integrity that will lead to the dead end. Okay, can I stop now? Okay. That's what I only have in mind, because I have to confess, as coming here, I have nothing in my head at all, because I was so stunned by the process of election and the just recently announced by the Election Commission this afternoon. So what I have prepared last night seemed to be meaningless, a little bit, more or less. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is divide my presentation into two parts, briefly. First, I will analyze kind of voting behavior this time, and the second part will be government formation scenario, which I always wrong. Keep in mind about that. So my overall picture for this election is that to me, I think electoral bloc remains more or less the same, which is still polarized. But it has moved from yellow and red line yellow and red line and anti-Thaksin and pro-Thaksin to anti-NCPO and pro-NCPO. That is the overall picture. All right, my second point, to explain that, the reason I said that it's still more or less the same is that if we looked at the previous votes received by Pheu Thai from the last election in 2011, Pheu Thai received 14 million votes. And this time, Pheu Thai received only 7.9. It seems from the first glance that Pheu Thai received a lot of less votes. But the votes has been distributed among other parties within the same bloc. Basically, first of all, the Future Forward, which received 6.2 million votes. So if you combine the two parties together, that would account for about 14 million already. not to mention other party in the same factions like Seri, Sathikit Mai, or Seri Pisut and Prasha Chat, Seri Rom Thai, Prasha Chat forever. Thank you. All right. So on the other side, the Democrat bloc. Okay, I mean, the Democrat was crushed in this election. It received only 3.9 million votes. Mostly, its electoral base has transferred to Palang Pracharat, which received the recent number just announced this afternoon is 8.4 million votes by Palang Pracharat, increased from yesterday about nearly 1 million. All right. So, all right, just look on the positive side. That was 96% or 94% of the votes counted, and today we got 100% votes counted. So, in overall picture, in 2011, the two parties, the Democrat and Pheu Thai, received about 83% of the House members. But these times, the two parties will receive a lot less than 86%. I have no time to calculate that, sorry. All right, so, but that is the overall picture. My three other points that I would like to focus is, actually, the first thing that came to my mind 2 days ago was, what should be an explanation for a very low voter turnout? Before today, the news was about 65 to 68%. In 2011, it was 75%. And from the past 4 elections, the voter turnout has been increased, well, not dramatically, but increased accumulatively. But when I heard that the voter turnout was only 65%, I have no answer to that. I think actually that's what surprised me the most of all. My first explanation is that because in this election, not many parties can distribute monies. Don't get me wrong, my stand is always, and from my research and Ajahn Prinya research as well, vote buying is not a decisive factor of who's going to win the election, but people need money for traveling costs to the election poll. For example, people who live in Bangkok, who work in Bangkok, but they have to vote in the northeast. If they don't have money, they choose to stay in Bangkok, right? Absentee ballot is available, yes, but it's not very easy for people more than 40 years old with a little knowledge about social media to get through it by online registration. So we have seen a lot of absentee ballot votings from the younger generation, but not Generation X or Generation Y. Okay, that is my explanation for that. But today, good news may be, voter turnout increased to 74, a magic number. All right, okay, we accept that. Okay, all right. My second point is that what stunned me, the next point is that it is a defeat of big names, influentials in local areas, long-time incumbents, for example, in Chiang Rai, big names in Pattaya, Chonburi, right, influential, Samut Prakan, Samut Sakhon. So I think this is going to be a new development in Thai electoral landscape, right? Before, in Thailand, we used to have what we call electoral polls. Electoral polls mean if you are an incumbent, you don't have to canvass or you don't have to contest. You always elected because of your strong base. But this time it seems that this is going to change in the near future. So for me, actually, it's a good news. My third point is Palang Pracharat and the Democrat. I mentioned before that Palang Pracharat received 8.4 million votes. What can be an explanation for I mean, for me, I used to think that this is going to be a one-time party, a one-time political party. I mean, contesting this election and then disappear. But it might not be true, right? I always wrong about this. So 8.4, where the votes coming from? The first gun, yes, obviously from the Democrat, right? The Democrat lost nearly 7 million votes, from 10 million to 3 million this time. So at least 7 million moved to Palang Pracharat. Why? From my estimation and my speculation is that people who vote for the Democrats are those who are in the yellow bloc and used to be anti-Thaksin sentiment. And this time they feel that the Democrat is not strong enough for them to protect what they want, to serve what they have in mind. So they move to Palang Pracharat, who seem to be stronger and offer a peaceful environment and a status quo of social order. So this is an explanation. But again, 8.3 million from Palang Pracharat may pull out from, for example, Chat Thai, Phum Chai Thai, not Phum Chai Thai. Phum Chai Thai, 3 million remain approximately the same. Phum Chai Thai is Anutin party, the one that Ajahn Prinya mentioned to a lot. So that's an explanation of why Palang Pracharat received very high vote. But my observation is that Palang Pracharat, to me, seem to be very similar to the Republican of the US. Why? Because for me, it's voting base from this election comes from the top segment of society and the bottom cluster of society. The top segment is from the rich, the middle class, the upper middle class, who want to see a peaceful environment, more than anything else, more than democratic process. And the bottom cluster from those who benefit from the NCPO and the Prayut's government. For example, the welfare state card, the state welfare cards. I think this is true. So this is an advantage that Palang Pracharat have all along coming into this election, right? Not to mention all those state apparatus that has been exercised very rigorously before and during the election. So if you notice, I'm not sure because you are foreigners, but if you notice, after the election this time, there's no accusation of vote buying. This is unlike many previous elections. After the election announced, the results announced, accusation of vote buying was widespread. But this time, no, nothing. It's why? Because it seemed that, well, how can I say? It seemed that, not many parties can spread the money because they are afraid of the red and yellow card, right? Because my answer why I don't think this is an election with integrity. But anyway, but for me this is good because vote buying should not be an excuse to devalue election. I hope this trend will continue. All right. My fourth point on voting behavior is, the fifth point actually, I would like to touch a little bit upon our regional stronghold. So in Thailand, we used to call regional politics, right? And we know that the southern is a stronghold for the Democrat, as well as Bangkok. But this time we know that Bangkok is crushed. The Democrat is, they lost all the seats. And for me, the reason that the Democrat lost, obviously, the voting base moved to Palang Pracharat. And but then again, the reason that Palang Pracharat received most seats in Bangkok, even though its popular vote received less than the Future Forward is, in many constituencies, the contest is Palang Pracharat, Pheu Thai and the Future Forward. So when they go head to head, it allowed the Palang Pracharat to come up the winner. So, but if you look at popular votes, the Future Forwards received most votes in Bangkok. As for the central area. All along, central area is the most competitive area. Before Chat Thai of Kun Banhan, who passed away already, who was the stronghold of Chat Thai. But this time, the central area seemed to be the most competitive one. Pheu Thai received only 15 out of 55, and Chat Thai received only five, and Phalang Pracharat received 15. So in central areas, seats seem to be distributed among many parties. The most notable one may be the South. In the South, the Democrats lost 22 out of 50. They received only 22 out of 50, but before they received 40. So they lost nearly 100%. There's 50 seats in the South. The Democrats received only 22. Before they received about 45, right? The region that seemed to be still the stronghold of the Pheu Thai is the North, not the Northeast. Because this time in the Northeast, Pheu Thai lost 20 seats, more than the last election. So that's why I think vote buying accusation is silenced, along with the welfare card that seem to prove to be a little bit effective for the lower middle class and in the countryside. All right, so that's my brief analysis of voting behavior. I moved to government formation, and my scenario is actually similar to Ajahn Prinya. I think there will be, so the announcement by Election Commission today seemed to alter a little bit, only a little bit, right, based on Ajahn Prinya analysis, alter only a little bit of the seats distributed before today. But another weapon by the Election Commission is, like Ajahn Prinya said, all the cards, all the color cards. But I think to exercise the cards might not be that effective, because right now the parties has been forming into different blocks. It's in two blocks. So in constituency that Pheu Thai received the red card, Anakot Mai, the Future Forward, can contest in that election. So it might not alter the total seats within the block that much. So the card, the yellow and orange card, might not be that effective. So overall result might be that the numbers that we have seen today, 251, 252, and 249 might not change dramatically. So what will happen if the numbers still remain the same like this? So, but anyway, I believe that, okay, let me say it like this, because based on the constitution, the Pheu Thai and it allied might be able to form a majority government, like 251, 253, but they cannot choose the prime minister. They can form the government, but they cannot choose the prime minister. Whereas the other side cannot form the majority government, but they will be able to choose the prime minister. And based on the constitution, choosing the prime minister comes first. Right, based on the constitution, choosing the prime minister comes first. So after the election commission announced the formal electoral results, right? 3 days, we will have the Senate. And 15 days after that, House members will convene to select its president. And after that, a little bit after that, the two parliaments will join together to choose the prime minister. And you know that 250 senators will vote for blah blah blah, right? So we know who basically will get this 250 votes. Maybe not 250 to make it more competitive, right? Yeah, to make it not too obvious, right? So, but they only need 126. They only need 126. So I think they receive 126. So they don't have to form a majority government. It means that they don't need 251, unless the yellow and red card can do the magic for them, right? So they only need like 200 plus 250 from the Senate. They choose the Prime Minister first. And after that, they can draw more votes from defections, from whatever, anything, right? Under the table deal, right? So more likely to me, Prayut will become the next Prime Minister, right? But stability of the government is another question. So, but if this doesn't happen, so if this plan, I mean, this is a well planned, I have to accept that. If this plan won't work, what can they do? They can delay forming the government, maybe not forever, but the constitution, not eternity, but the constitution doesn't stipulate how long does they have to form the government. So they can delay it forever. Not forever, until they find a suitable candidate, right? If Prayut government stay in power after the election, in this scenario, he still have the whole power. It's not a limited government, but with Article 44. Right. So this will maybe a pressure to the House of Representatives to do something, or even accept a candidate outside the party list. Right. So this, I call it, this is to unlock Article 272 of the Constitution that allow a non-candidate to be in play. So my conclusion, I think I have spent a lot of time here. My conclusion is that, similar to Ajahn Prinya analysis, the Democrat will be a game-changing player. And only if the parties united together, we can beat the NCPO. But if they cannot, and it seems more likely that they are not uniting together, we are going to lose this game to the NCPO. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. David, sorry to leave you to last, but I hope you've saved up something special for us from your knowledge of Isan.
Well, so usually when I've been here before the FCCT, I've either talked about defamation, libel, or lèse majesté. And so actually I've never written anything academic about elections at all. So let me speak sort of briefly, but frankly. I'm really glad to see the ambassador of Sweden here and his wife. They are good friends of the Northeast, and I think that I'm glad that there's one person from the Northeast, or in the Northeast here. I'm wearing black today because I think this is a really sad set of days for Thailand. The Northeast spoke pretty clearly. The numbers keep changing, but last time I looked, 89% of the people in the Northeast voted against the Democratic or the military proxy government. And I say it's a sad day because the Northeast has been, it is in a sense wherever the Northeast goes, Thailand generally goes. It may not go this time, and there may be some other trickery at work that may change that. I heard on the night of the election, some of the journalists around, we were talking, and they gave the view that, the military party won. They won the popular vote. They got more votes than any other party. Yeah, that might be true, but at the same time, the Democratic parties, which are predominant in the Northeast, did not vote for the military. It was 89% against the military. And I'm reflecting a lot of what I heard over the last few days, both in the Northeast and here in Bangkok, of taxi drivers and all those important informants that we have. But you know, some people in the Northeast feel this is a long-term, this is a I don't know, it's well planned. It was a planned program of 5 to 10 years it's been rolling out. You know, and the first thing was to demean toxin, or to demean the lower sector of society and blame it on toxin. To a point where the 2014 elections didn't come off, and then there was a coup. And that coup was one of the points, one of the beginning points of a long-term plan to have a coup, to talk down politics, in places like the Northeast where there's a very large electorate, and then to move on to a constitution, which personally, but I have no proof, I was in a village, they voted it down against the new constitution, 70%. I drive my motorcycle back home, and it turns out that it passed. I'm not sure what was going on there, but that was a sad day. I mean, in the sense that maybe many Northeasterners wanted to get to an election, even under a considerably flawed constitution. And then then this happens. Okay, so part one, coup, constitution, and then elections. And everything was going swimmingly. On the night of the election, I remember at some point, there were 139 votes, seats in the House for the military party, and 138 for Pheu Thai. You know, we were just following along the thing, and we were at the Pheu Thai headquarters. So it looked like all of a sudden, like the military had won. I talked to Jonathan. It seemed dark. And it's like, I guess they won. I don't know. What are we going to do? And then there was something that happened right in the middle of all this. There's 1,000 camera teams. And then all of a sudden, and we're waiting for Sudarat to come in. She doesn't come. No, she's just about ready to come. Okay, she's coming, she's not coming. Okay. But also, all of a sudden, way down the hall, there's cheering. There's cheering because Opposite had just stepped down from the Democrat Party. And the cheering, but I mean, that cheering is significant because for the Northeast, Opposite represents that government that ordered the killings in 2010. This is a very sensitive point. And for a lot of Northeasterners, it was a sense of like some sort of justice had been done. The Democrats had been humiliated. Opposite had stepped down. And I think in this sense, there's another spirit we can talk about, not academic necessarily, but kind of from the people that I talked to, both in Bangkok, the day of the election, the day after the election, and then in the Northeast. It's a sense of aggrievement that their enfranchisement doesn't make any difference, that Northeasterners, no matter what happens, they will try to put in a prime minister, and Bangkok will bring them down in some way. And I think this plan, though, has got, I mean, the regime has to stay in power. If they don't stay in power, the NCPO is going to, if Thanathorn and the Pheu Thai have their way, they're going to dismantle this entire structure, if they could. And there are people that are going to be held accountable at the end of this. And because of that threat, the NCPO will make sure that these numbers work out in a way that they can get their prime minister in. But as I have written in the New York Times and Al Jazeera, there is no way you can have a minority government anywhere trying to rule. Where do the cabinet ministers come from anyway? There's no way that this can last because of a structural flaw for the NCPO in the Constitution that allows just half the House to take down a prime minister or cabinet ministers. Last point. Well, no, I want to bring up everything I've heard from every Northeastern person, whether in Bangkok or in Khon Kaen over the last few days, is this has been one enormous cheat. And this cheat, this entire effort of a coup, a constitution, an election, was created entirely to legitimate continued military rule in Thailand. Absolutely. To the degree that they will mess with the numbers, to the degree that they might put Thanathorn in jail and dissolve the Future Forward Party, to whatever they may do at this point, will cut down on the legitimacy that the NCPO is trying to create. And they are really stuck in a bad place, though they may not know it. Contrary to many people's beliefs, I don't believe that if we look at the interests of the military, if we look at the interests of democracy in Thailand, and we look at the interests of the monarchy, it is not necessarily separate. There could be a convergence, an overlap between the interests of the monarchy if the monarchy was at a point where it wanted to reform and try to become a more popular institution, maybe not without the charisma that was in the previous reign, but a different kind of regime. It could be that those democratic and those monarchy forces could step in. There could be some sort of intervention, which generally is bad. But it's been bad because it's always turned toward authoritarianism, always toward the military. Could there be a different kind of intervention? I don't know. But people in the Northeast were, at least people politically engaged, were so happy on February 8th because finally, no one from the royal family came to a single red shirt funeral. There was no recognition of the deaths of the people from, primarily the Northeast. And this was at last a moment where someone from the monarchy, maybe not technically a royal, seemed to be reaching out a hand. And for people in the Northeast, it was finally some sort of kind of reconciliation between the monarchy and the people of the Northeast. And it was felt very strongly. And when that was pulled away, who knows why, I don't think that it was unheard. And it's possible that there still may be some, quote, interference from the monarchy. We would say in past times, oh my gosh, that's so bad. But maybe in a certain case it might be good. Because there is no way that this military government, the NCPO, is going to easily give up on power. And if it won't, then there's no other alternative. People can protest, they can die. We can see what happened in 2010 again. But why do mainly Isan people have to keep dying for something like that? Thank you.
On that cheerful note, there is a microphone available. If you want to use it to ask questions, you could perhaps identify yourselves and possibly say who you would like to answer your question. Don't all rush at once. Let's see, you're all bursting with questions. Please, off you go.
Hello. Hi. My name is Kitapong, and this question is for the panel. Let's just say I'm a private citizen, and I would like to ask 2 questions. So the first question is, I would like to ask whether this would be a win for Pheu Thai Party, because yesterday morning they've decided to join forces with 7 political parties, and they've claimed that they have the legitimacy for 255 seats in the lower house. But as you've addressed earlier, you said that in order to establish a government, you would need 376 seats in parliament to form a government. Now, do you think that this is a win for Pheu Thai? Or even so, if they would rather stay in the opposition, would you think that this would be a win for Pheu Thai Party? Or would Phum Chai Thai still be a key factor for this one? And my second question would be, how would you think that Kun Thaksin still plays a role in Thai politics? Because yesterday in BBC Thai, he interviewed and he said that he's not influenced. He's just a cheer. He wants to share the party. And I was just wondering how and what influence do you think that he still has upon this election? And those are my 2 questions.
Thank you very much. I think that could probably go to a lot of the panel anyway. Perhaps I can start with you, Ajahn Prinya. First off, is the declaration by Pheu Thai that they now have enough seats to form a government some kind of a victory? And secondly, is Kun Thaksin still a significant figure?
Actually, I would like to answer the first question. Yesterday is not the win of Pheu Thai Party, in my opinion. Have you read exactly what they signed, the contract that they signed? We would like to stop NCPO. It's not contract to build coalition. And Sudarat said, it's to stop NCPO. I don't want to be Prime Minister, it's okay. And Thanaut said the same thing. And it's very new in Thailand. We have not seen something like this before. And now I want to speak something positive for Thai, the future of Thai democracy. What happened now is something that never happened, and I see hope. Yes, for Thailand, and Future Forward Party make me think about the beginning of the Green Party of Germany. As they get through the German Bundestag in 1983, the Green Party was the 4th party in German Bundestag, But at that time, they get only 5.7%. And they never get more than 10%. Why? Only one time they get 11%, but they never get more than that. That German people is famous about their environmental consciousness and so on, the love of nature. Why they don't give their vote more for Green Party? The answer is easy. The established party like CDU, FPD, SPD, if you know that there is new party that will get the voter from you, you need to change your policy. And the established party, these 3, they brought environmental policy to the policy of the parties. What does this mean? It's already happened in Thailand. Because of the Future Forward Party, and the old party need to change. And the very first one that affect most from Future Forward is Democrat. Democrat affect so much from Future Forward, and they need to reform. And we can see the first thing that we will have more diversity, in our parliament this time. We never have something like this before. We will have new policy, from civil society, from a small group of people, which will be brought in the parliament for the first time, really, it's new. And secondly, I analyzed that, it is not about from the ally who should be the prime minister. It is about the ally to stop NCPO, and the number they need is 326. If they can get this number, Prayut cannot get 326. And to get this number, firstly, they need Phum Chai Thai. And secondly, they need Democrat. And it can happen. It could be a good comeback, for Democrat to stop NCPO. I will vote for democracy, but I don't attend the coalition. This could be the good comeback for them.
Ajahn Siripan, I wonder whether I could ask you about the Thaksin question. Is he still relevant, or is he a fading force?
Yeah, I would be a liar if I say that he's not a significant player behind the scene here. But I think that maybe in the future his role should be or maybe diminished. The emergence of the Future Forward shows that there's a new dynamic in electoral competition. And the new generation accounted for about 7 to 8 million. Don't care about Thaksin that much, because they never voted for Pheu Thai or Thaksin's party before. So they are looking for the new hopes, new inspiration. So Thaksin in the future will have to fade away, intentionally or not. And I think that's going to be good for Thailand in the future. But right now he's still undeniably he's still a significant player this time.
Is Pheu Thai now sort of becoming essentially a party of the provincial party of the North and Northeast?
It has spread seats all over the country. Not only the North and the Northeast. There's a majority seats, but in Bangkok still the second place, and in the central area still the second place. So I think Pheu Thai, my analysis is that in the future Pheu Thai may be smaller because there's a new cleavage in Thai politics, but it still be there, and a national party, not a regional party for me.
With this sort of diminution of, this could be for any of you, as Thaksin sort of becomes less important, as his party has to sort of share the stage, does that change the dynamic of Thai politics, where so much of the other side has been focused on the figure of Thaksin as a kind of target?
Actually, before we have PPRP, the people who want to vote against Thaksin, they will give their vote to Democrat. But this time it's weird, really, for Democrat. They want to vote against Pheu Thai, but they don't vote for Democrat, but vote for PPRP. It is good if Thaksin do like he said to BBC. They should only cheer, democracy, and should not give influence more to Thai politics. And then we come back, to normality again, and the beginning, the last Sunday is the beginning of Thailand to come back to normality and to democracy again. But this time, this travel to democracy is long. It takes time for 5 years, In these 5 years, we are not in democracy. We are in hybrid system. We have the lower house from the people and the upper house from NCPO, which can vote for select PM with the representative of the people. 5 years, but the 5 years will somehow be finished, And the beginning is already on the last Sunday, And it doesn't matter whether Prayut can be prime minister furthermore. If he can be, he won't stay in the power for so long, and the Thai people would learn about that, and Thai political parties as well. Just thank you.
Panu.
Just a quick one on Thaksin, I guess. Actually, my story about this is coming out tomorrow morning, so please read. But I mean, just an observation as a reporter, going to some of these northern provinces that have switched from Pheu Thai, they've been voted for Pheu Thai for 15 years, and then this election, they've, this constituency voted for Palang Pracharat, overwhelmingly voted for Palang Pracharat, and actually there's Pheu Thai only win 30 out of a 62 constituency in the north, in the lower north, Pak Nua, right? So that's a significant number compared to in 2011 when they won 50, out of 66 available. I mean, the Northeast actually, they actually fare better in the Northeast this time around. They won 84 out of the 116 available. But the North is really where they lost their thing. So I went up there. I just came back yesterday. I mean, it was very apparent. Palang Pracharat essentially copied Thai Rak Thai, formula. They used the strong man. They used the local candidate as the draw. A lot of people were swayed. I mean, I spoke to voters who essentially voted for Palang Pracharat, and they said they hate Palang Pracharat, they hate Prayut, but they know that this candidate, this is in Phayao province, they know that this local candidate can be the best candidate for their town, because he's been sort of, he owns the local football team, he patronage, pays the temple, etc., etc., etc. You can, especially those of you who live in Thailand long enough, you understand exactly what I mean. But the real surprise story, and I think a lot of my fellow panelists have mentioned, is future forward. The real the real good story, I guess, in this election is that why in Phayao province, 3 constituencies, 2 of them went to Palang Pracharat. Pheu Thai came second in those 2. Pheu Thai won 1, but Future Forward came 3rd in all the constituencies. And I talked to some of these voters, and of course there's allegations of vote buyings and allegations of coercion and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's very, for a Thai standard, it's pretty normal. That sounds really bad. But I just want to say quickly before I end that there were actually people, genuine people, like 40-year-old, 50-year-old, even 60-year-old who voted for Future Forward, who said that Thanathorn reminded them of Thaksin in his younger years. That, this is the real thing. And that, they even said that back in those days, that Thaksin came on the scene, there were some vote buyings, there was some reliance on the strongman. But this time around, they voted for Thanathorn just because they saw him on TV. He didn't even visit that province. So there's something there. There's a shift in the making. Thaksin is still a force to be reckoned with, as he have shown this election. But I think new chapter is about to arrive.
May I add a little bit to that? When we look at the north, we have to distinguish between the upper north and the lower north. I think the upper north is still the stronghold for Pheu Thai, whereas the lower north, if you look at the candidates, most of the Palang Pracharat's candidates who win this time was former Pheu Thai's incumbent members, as Phayao and Kampang Phet, for example. So next time they will move back to Pheu Thai. That's what I have heard.
Please, David.
Yeah, I have 2 comments about this. One is I was involved in a frustrated group in the Northeast in February and March and April of 2014. And it was a group of just Khon Kaen University ajahns and business persons and other, I'm not sure, we were 20 or 30 people. And they were all red, but not favorable to Thaksin. This entire group by this year is just all future forward. It was the option to go to when you were liberal, when you believed in human rights and democracy. So this incredible shift, and none of these people were this young generation at all. That's number 1. Number 2, one of the candidates in Pheu Thai was in the south part of Khon Kaen, Sarasanan, and she won. She's 30 years old. And she got nothing within the Pheu Thai about the Thaksin, whatever it was, whatever you get in your orientation there. And she didn't play it off of Thaksin at all. I mean, again, they might have been disqualified had they said the word toxin, but they weren't oriented toward that. They sounded a little bit more like the Future Forward candidate. And in fact, she said she had really underestimated the Future Forward candidate in her very rural province. And so, you know, if you look at the larger trends, it seems to be capturing more and more, perhaps.
Thanks very much. Let's have the next question, please. Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan Filer from the British Embassy. Could you say something about the media freedom environment, and is the real story able to be told? Maybe you too, Jonathan, as well.
You're putting me on the spot there.
What is the real story anyway?
I get a lot of complaints because every time I'm supposed to appear on TV, a miraculous panel sort of slides across and I just disappear. And we're still trying to figure out what the gremlin is in True Corporation, whether it's a man in green uniform or whether it's something else. But it's erratic. The other day they had Andrew McGregor Marshall on, who one would think, and he was allowed to speak on BBC freely, but whenever I appear, apparently, they have to. Anyway, it's an endless discussion with True, which we don't get to the bottom of. I mean, actually, I was going to perhaps ask Shantanu, if for you, what was the media environment free enough, as far as you're concerned, for a fair election?
My idea is that if you ensure in the free and fair election, every level playing field equally have to play, including the media. Media, that is like the election was declared on November. Before that, it was ruled by the junta or the military law. In that sense, that you are giving the answer very clearly how the military rule operated. It was not very open to the media. But compared to other countries, media, you can see like neighboring Cambodian countries, that media was not totally free. But in here, somehow, some extended free. It doesn't mean that you are getting all the freedom to play in this country. And that is my answer for that.
Panu, I was going to ask you, because you obviously talk to your Thai colleagues. I mean, there's this you're effectively international media like me, and we're sort of left alone. But Thai media do get an awful lot of phone calls, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still, I think it's probably less to do with the election per se, but just the general media landscape, especially for domestic local media, since the military coup. There's my Thai colleagues probably can say more about it. But I mean, essentially, from what I understand is that, and because I have been working in Thai media before, there's a high level of self-censorship. There's a high level of concern about, especially in television, about a possibility of program being cancelled or a sort of interference in terms of the business, revenue of of TV and such. So I mean, the environment in general since the coup hasn't really improved that much for the domestic media, I would say, but there has been a lot more self-censorship. Getting to this election, just briefly, I think there's they have allowed sufficient space for the discussion leading up to it. I mean, you've seen that with the television debate. It's been quite robust compared to the environment the political discussion that we've had or not have in the past 5 years. So I think to be fair as an observation, there has been some constraint, but most of the time leading up to the election has been more self-censorship because of fear of what the possible consequences are, and then quite a robust discussion. Now we're in this sort of period though where it's unclear because we're about to enter sort of the period of coronation. How much political discussion or critical discussion can be allowed on public domain, we're not sure.
One of the interesting things there's constant warnings from the military authorities in particular to candidates, but also to the media, not to cause disunity, not to cause strife. I mean, the whole nature of elections is disagreement, and the military seem to feel that that's bad for the country. And you think, well, then how can you? I mean, that tone kind of hangs over the whole thing. Everyone's constantly being warned.
I think just on that anecdote from today, Palang Pracharat, I think in one of their presser or answering the press, they're like, we'll build our party not to compete with anyone.
Not to have to compete, yeah. Michael, here.
Just a quick question, Michael Mackey, freelance. Can we really write the Democrats and Abhisit off? Because here is a man who at one point was the only Democrat MP in the then Parliament. I'm referring to the period, I think, after the second Taksin victory in 2005. And because of interventions done outside the Parliament, he became back as Prime Minister. And I'm just wondering if we're not on the verge of a similar scenario, that we might have him returned because of forces outside the Parliament seeing him as a good centrist candidate. Are they really finished?
He's resigned, of course, as party leader, but I think he had an aspiration to be Speaker of the Parliament. I mean, what happens to Abhisit now?
Because he promised that if Democrats get less than 100 seats, he will resign.
There was a bit like a suicide letter to write,
yes.
Wasn't it?
But yes, I mean, he underestimated the Future Forward Party. Yes.
I think everyone did, to be fair. I mean,
actually, if we talk about Future Forward Party, I would say that this number is, 88 seats. Is really more than expected. You know why? One of the main factor is Pheu Thai don't send their candidates in every constituency, just only 250. And with collaboration with Thai Raksa Chat that already dissolved, and the people who want to give their vote for Thai Raksa Chat, they don't have there is no Thai Raksa Chat anymore. Then they vote for Future Forward.
What do we think happens to Abhisit now, though? Has he got a future?
Yes, I don't think that he will. According to the question, if you talk about like this, I mean something outside the parliament, Anutin should be. I mean,
if you're putting money on a prime minister now, you'd probably put it on Anutin, wouldn't you?
Yes, if Abhisit already resigned, I don't think that he could be the good choice. Anutin would be.
Can he be Speaker of the Parliament? I'm wondering whether even that's possible.
Yes, he's still the number one of the party list. I think so. Candidate number one. Yes, he will be.
But would he be in a position? I mean, surely other parties would want their person to be Speaker of Parliament.
Yes, I mean, we still have 40 days,
God. Through the wilderness.
Yes.
Going to be a bit like Brexit. Get the next question, please.
Good evening. Isla Chai, reporter and columnist in Motishot Weekly. I'm asking about one question to all panelists, but I think this question is mainly for Mr. Strefas. Sure. Before that, I ask about the role of monarchy in election, because we know the February 8 is we got the answers, but this movement is very interesting to me. Before the election day in March 23, there's state television broadcast royal announcement from King Chulalongkorn. The details refer about late King's speech about choose good people to govern and control bad people. I accept that the first time I saw this unusual movement that I never seen in previous election. But that was only one time that's announced. But the two at night and one before we going to vote. How can you explain this move and affect the people's attitude before go to vote?
You've dropped the bomb. Who wants to take that little hot potato on? It's pointed at you, David. Look on your face says it all.
Yeah, no. It's a good question, because, as I say, a lot of people in the Northeast, and I think other places, interpreted the, when Ubon Rat, Princess Ubon Rat, became a candidate. She didn't become a candidate just because she wanted to become a politician, and who knows, she might have gone with a more established party like Democrat or maybe even the Thai, but that would have seemed a little bit more equal. What she became the candidate of was a really grassroots, gritty, red shirt party, and that to me, I can't imagine. Save me if I say something wrong. I can't imagine that the king didn't somehow know about this, and that was making a statement, which I don't think is unreasonable in this situation, to say that he was backing the Democratic side in some fashion. If this military government, the present government, cannot count the votes right, and this is going to be, in the end, inconclusive and not clear, and the NCPO will be inclined to blame their own electoral commission for messing up and somehow dissolve them and bring in new people, blame them, the very people that they appointed. Well, how can popular forces react against this? So in terms of the monarchy, I think the monarchy, sitting up in the Northeast, I thought, wow, that seemed to be putting his weight on one side. Maybe not. Don't put me in jail. What
about the letter, though, on the eve of the election?
On the eve of the election, I couldn't read it. I don't know. Maybe to rethink what good persons mean. I don't know. The thing. Because that was the old style of saying kind of good persons.
Did everybody understand what the king meant by good people, or is that open to interpretation? Deathly silence.
No matter from anyone,
yeah.
That's open to interpretation.
I think royal messages are always rather cryptic anyway, though, to be interpreted. Next question, please.
สวัสดีค่ะ My name is Hatairat Phonghuntap. I'm a freelancer. I would like to ask Ajahn Parinya for two questions. The first one is after this election, so many parties complains about constitution. That means it's not fair enough. Do you think can we have a chance to rewrite the constitution to be fair and to be clear enough for the competition? For the second question is I have heard analysis from somewhere. If they don't have the best scenario for coalition, for the forming the government, another coup can be happen. So you are a technician guys on constitution. Do you have an idea to freeze the army to freeze the power of the army? Thank you.
If you want to amend the constitution, you need 1/3 from the Senate. It is the first time, normally you need only absolute majority from both houses. Right. But they design this constitution, to protect, the politicians and the parties to change the constitution, and actually 1/3 is not so many, but all of them are not elected. They will be appointed and nominated from NCPO, and it is very difficult to get this 1/3. But the first thing and most important thing we need to change in this constitution is the electoral system. Yes, you can see that by this election, this constitution is designed to scale down the biggest party. Pheu Thai get 0 MP from party list. Decline. Yes, the biggest, and it's unfair electoral system in my opinion. Yes, and the second thing, there is only one time in the history of Thailand that there was coup d'etat after election. Only one time. Yes, after General Pibun Songkham won the election, but it's a dirty election. We call that, But General Solid Thanarat ran a coup and against Pibun Songkham. Yes. But by the successful election, okay, we still can see that we have a successful election. We still have a doubtful election, but it's look not that bad. And if you run a coup d'etat, I mean by the NCPO, the people who go to vote last Sunday will go on to the streets. I don't think so. It's dangerous for, my first time to be here, it was 27 years ago, before the May event. I was here, as a panelist, at that time I was, by the Student Federation of Thailand, and that should not happen again. We should solve the conflict, should the political problem, peacefully, and I hope that we can do that peacefully. No bloodshed again, no coup again. Yes, and I think the popularity, the popularity of NCPO, they don't have popularity anymore. That they have votes more than Pheu Thai. It is only one question. There is many causes why. The first is, as I told you, as I mentioned, Pheu Thai don't send their candidates in 100 constituency. Therefore, they get less votes than PPRP, And it is something that Thaksin effect, because they don't want to, they have afraid of Thaksin something and they give their vote to PPRP. What happened some days, few days before election day. That's a positive effect, to the PPRP, something like that. But, we can see that PPRP can get only 117 or 18 seats from 500. Can you call that a win for NCPO? Yes, it is no win. But it is, if we look on the side of the party that they declare that they want support Prayut, these parties get seats more than the half. I think if we could call that referendum, it is referendum to send Prayut back, to get him off from the house, from the government house.
Thank you. Yes. David, you want to just clarify something, I think?
I'd like to make two more points. One point is since I said that this is an entire game of legitimacy, if the House were to propose a prime minister that came from the majority, let's say Anutin, if they get that side, and they try to bring Prayut in, then the legitimacy question pops up again. The second point to Hathairat's question, if I believe this is a long-term plan, and who knows, plans get messy, but I don't think they have any choice that if this goes against them at the end of the day, that they will launch a coup, because they have to. They feel they have to. The only thing that might change that is public opinion, and as Adnan Brinya says, like, people are in the streets and there's some sort of signal from civil society that their time is over. Okay. Otherwise they will.
Ajahn Sirivani. Sorry.
All right. You want to go first? Well, I just want to disagree a little bit with Ajahn Brinya. I'm sorry, but I think you are running in a lavender field a little bit when you're saying that 8 million votes is a signal to send General Prayut to whatever he belongs. I think 8 million votes means a lot, and it means that Thailand is still polarized. That's my my reading to this, and we cannot deny it. And 8 million is, plus some other from smaller parties. I'm sorry that I kept looking at my telephone because my good friends just sent me the calculation of the news announcement by Election Commission this afternoon, and it seemed that the total votes combined among the 7 anti-MCPO parties is 253. So
there'll be 253 seats.
253 seats.
Yeah.
So it remains more or less the same, right? So it's going to be a little bit deadlocked until the election commission issue red and yellow cards or orange card or whatever. So come to the point that whether Kun Anutin would be able to become a prime minister. So if we look at the numbers, 253 right now among 7 parties, with about 50 from Phum Chai Thai and 50 from the Democrat. So it's 353. So still less than 376. Still less than 376. So it is not going to be an easy game for either part. So, but still, I have no answer or no way out to this. But I would like to answer Kun Thairat's question about whether there's going to be the next coup. I think Article 272 is installed in the Constitution in order to prevent the next coup d'etat. So, it's still, now I'm running in a lavender field. I don't like it because it's a non-MP prime minister. But I think it's a mechanism installed to preemptive the next coup, because the next prime minister will be approved by, all parties involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Shantani, you want to say something?
Of course, I'm not talking about that the which party going to be win or the which party going to be lose. That is not our international observer role. Of course, the thing is, this election is come, as I said, after 7 years. Unfortunately, Thai people have to wait. Who will be the next our leader? Who will be not? The system in our analysis, we clearly mentioned electoral system, electoral law is failed. It was the major issue in these elections. And finally, that we have to wait, people have to wait, people have to debate, people have to discuss, and also that losing the trust among the election, among the people, among the parties, through the election commissions, a lot of things happen because of the electoral law, plan, prepare, no any party to get the majority, the power. If they want to go for the coalition or they want to depend on the Senate or the unelected candidates. This is my answer.
Thank you. Yeah. Phil.
Hi, I'm Phil Robertson from Human Rights Watch. The question I have is actually about the very serious issue of the actual ballots that were invalidated. There's a significant number of ballots were invalidated. And my question to the panel is, what's going on with that? What is the cause of these invalidation? I was just talking with a bunch of diplomats when they were saying, well, it looks like a bunch of ballots that were voted were sent to the wrong district, and the entire group of ballots were sent off and basically invalidated. So I don't know if that's the case. I don't know what the reason is, but ultimately the issue of invalidation of ballots, especially when it's a significant number like this, has to be part of the discussion, and I'd like to know what the panel thinks of this, and
thank you.
What are the reasons for that?
Okay, first of all, perhaps maybe Ajahn Sirupani can start. What have I got now? 5.57. But isn't that quite similar to the 2011 election? So it's a sort of persistent failure. It's not a particularly a feature of the military government.
Election Commission.
Right, we were talking among ourselves because on the one hand, we think that the number is similar to the previous election is 5.57% or 2 million votes. But my interpretation is that the pattern of invalid ballots this time is different because it's not invalid because of misdecision, but many voters showed their clear intention, what parties they wanted to vote for, but they only mark in the different space provided. So the question is, should this be called invalid ballots or not? And the second pattern is that absentee ballots was sent to a wrong ballot booth. And it's called invalid, but it's not the wrongdoing by the voters. So that's a question that is make this invalid ballot different from the previous one.
Chandani, was that a concern for ANFREL, the pattern of invalid ballots?
Of course, it is our concern. We already mentioned in our report also. That is like I think there need to be clarified from the election management body what is the reason for the invalid ballots.
Sorry, in comparison to the last election 8 years ago, at that time it's something more than 4%, not 5, something just more than 4. This time it's 5.5%. It's more than 2 million votes, 2 million invalid votes. One of the main reason I think because the Thai people used, by the last 4 election, previous election, the last 20 years. People had 2 ballots and 2 votes. 1 vote for candidates in constituency and other vote for candidates for in the party list. But this time they got only one vote. And election commission don't tell this so much. I mean, even at the polling station, they don't tell the people that you have now only 1 vote, and I can say that most of the invalid ballots has more one vote, in the ballot. Make invalid.
I think just a quick point as a reporter covering numerous elections in Thailand and also in neighboring countries, and also as a Thai voters, I think this time around there's a real issue with the election commission and the way they tell the people how the voting process is, and you can see on election day most of the officials involved are interior ministry officials in the countryside. In Bangkok it's like a bunch of policemen and whatnot. I mean, in the past I remember even the referendum. I mean, there were actually trained volunteers that have, that take months or maybe weeks of training, and there was actually a campaign that you go to a village or whatever, you see clearly how voting process is done. I think there's a lack of communication in this particular election.
So military government failed to organise an efficient election. There's a surprise there.
Or death by bureaucracy, essentially.
I'll make this the last question, Marwan.
Yeah, Marwan Mark of the Occasion Review. So clearly, there seems to be a legitimacy crisis that the election commission faces because of all these unanswered questions, and this is creating, bad blood among the constituency. If you read what Thais are posting on social media, there's a sense of outrage. Is there a possibility that this election can be annulled?
That'll be fun. You stunned the panel into silence.
And
I think that is election going to be null or not. It is depend on the election law. And election law we already mentioned it's I think lot of loopholes. And in that sense, I don't know how the election commission have power to make up null.
You don't think they have power as far as you understand the election law?
Sorry?
You don't. So are you saying that as far as you understand Thailand's election law, that the election commission does not have the power to annul the election, or it's not clear?
Not clear.
Okay, thanks.
Only the court. The court has already 2 times. They did 2 times, the Constitutional Court and Administrative Court.
We've got great faith in them.
But if the election runs unsuccessful, what will happen? NCPO, remain in the power, and it's not the good scene for Thailand, and I don't think that the election will be declared unvalid.
And that maybe election commission can call for the audit, impartial audit.
They
can be do.
They could, but I rather suspect they won't. I think I'm going to wrap it up there because it's been a long night, but thanks for bearing with us. Thank you all for attending, and thanks to our panel.